we're operating in a world of the present right now where the standard carrier of the conference is in the Big Ten East. The West has undergone a huge transformation. In order for all this to work, in order for all these pieces to fit together and there to be the right inventory, the West has got to hold up its end of the bargain. You have Wisconsin bringing in Luke Fickell. You have all of these changes. Nebraska bringing in Matt Rule. If 2 or 3 teams out of the West emerge, then that's more inventory that can work there, and maybe that Illinois-Wisconsin game suddenly becomes much more meaningful, and going to Camp Randall at night is going to draw the numbers that you want there. But just going back to the previous TV deal, let's not forget ABC got stuck with some stinkers in terms of, we're going to put on Ohio State or we're going to put on Michigan because they turn on television sets, and, well, damn it, we're going to have to put on, Ohio State, Rutgers. Damn it, we're going to have to put on Michigan, Indiana. That's just the way that things are going to have to work out at some points, and you're just going to have to deal with it. So, NBC or CBS or Fox or whoever can pound the table and say, we're paying a lot of money. We only want the most meaningful of games. Well, sorry, buddy, that's not how it always is going to work out. Blank happens, and you're going to get stuck with some things, and we're going to sit there, and the Big Ten is reduced how early they're releasing schedules and things of that nature in order to have maybe more balance or whatever. But there are going to be times that you're going to sit there and hope that Iowa Northwestern means something more than 6-3.
And there's no way there'll be 6 ranked teams every week throughout the season in the Big Ten. So one of these networks, if not 2 of them, are going to have a ranked team against an unranked team for their game. And that, as you just said, Indiana versus Ohio State or Northwestern versus Michigan, whatever it may be, is just examples. You were talking about the West needing to rise up and represent. What about the idea of just doing away with divisions, which I know Gene Smith would like, and I think that would create more value for that championship game if it's suddenly a top 10 matchup, and it is now suddenly basically for a bye into the quarterfinals of the playoff, as opposed to having to play in the first round. You figure both those teams as top 10 teams are going to be in the playoff, win or lose of that game. But, the stakes of that game, and aside from just that stupid trophy and Connor Cook, barreling over Archie Griffin on his way to the MVP trophy, are something tangible, that you get a bye to the final 8 in the playoff. I think that creates a little bit more of a television event, perhaps, so to think about. But I don't know, do you guys for or against one division? I mean, it's kind of like, what's the point? If you have divisions, it limits the number of times USC and UCLA will play Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, because you aren't going to play 3 crossovers so in a given year.
I'll jump in really quick and then hand it over to Tony. 1 division, no divisions, 20 divisions, it doesn't matter. I'm really speaking on those teams. The artist formerly known as the Big Ten West, even if you roll it all together, you've got to get more out of Nebraska. You've got to get more out of Minnesota. You've got to get more out of Wisconsin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if you have a couple of teams there instead of, okay, we know that the Big Ten West champion, or we know that out of there the ceiling is 8-3 or 9-3 or whatever. That's not going to fly. That's not going to move the needle. So, hopefully part of this rebirth in terms of where we see some of these programs going with new coaches and new directions will lead to a little bit more success on that side. But of course, it's a zero-sum game, and if the teams of the West, whether or not they're considered the West or not, if they get better and you have these crossover games, does that bring the East back closer to them or not? And that'll all be interesting to see how that works.
I think one of the things that will initially, this looks like it harms the West going divisionless, but it gives them a new realistic, new realized target. Before, you only had to be the best team in the West. So that's all you had to fight for. That's all you had to work for. Now you're going to have to be one of the top I think the Big Ten and with the 12-team playoff will generally get 3 teams in. That's probably the baseline. So you're going to have to be one of the top 3 teams in the Big Ten. And you can't do what you used to do. You can't just think of how Urban Meyer raised the level of the Big Ten coaches and Big Ten when he arrived, because everybody had to step up or else they were going to be left completely behind. You saw what happened at Michigan State. You saw, so like things got better. Coaches got better. With this, you can't just be, well, as long as we're 9-3 and shoot, 9-3 may get you in if the 3 losses are the right 3, but you can't be settling to be the best in the West. You're going to have to be in the top 3 in the Big Ten. And I think that takes a different kind of focus and different kind of talent pool and just a more serious brand of football. And so I think eventually this will help those teams realize what they need to realize. And I do like the Matt Rule hire. Obviously, everybody likes the Luke Fickell hire. So I think you're seeing things trend already in that direction. So I think ultimately it's good for the Big Ten, even though initially, the teams in the West are like, oh, this is bad news. Yeah, it is. So the fact that you think it's bad news tells you why you have not been winning the Big Ten championship.
So I guess Purdue didn't meet your standard last year, Tony, as the 42nd best team in the country with eventually 6 losses. That didn't quite hit the standard.
I'm just
Big
saying,
Ten Western Division champion.
They got the trophy. So, I can't take, they'll never be able to take that away from Jeff Brom.
In the end, in addition to the way Kevin Warren ruled the Big Ten commissioner's office, as Steve so eloquently and displayed for us, in the end, it seems as though he thought, the dollar figure justifies anything. So if I walk out of this conference and I left a few loose ends, I left some collateral damage in terms of relationships and communications and details, $7 billion justifies all of it. So that's what you got.
You want to be warm or do you want to be rich? Warmth doesn't keep the lights on necessarily. If you want to sit there and have the bragging rights of having this gigantic, deal and everything else, you're gonna have to sit there and play ball a little bit. And at least credit to Ohio State for saying, fine, we'll take this November 11th game. I think that they're playing offense on defense. Okay, we certainly don't want to get stuck with something on the week before Michigan. So we'll take our pill right there. We're going to sit there and get it set up. We can build this up as a pretty big recruiting weekend, even if Michigan State is, Tuck ain't coming and whatever. You sit there and you get the opportunity to bring in players from across the nation because of obviously the later kick time and everything else. A lot of guys' seasons will already be done at that point because you're already well into playoffs for teams and everything else. But I think Ohio State made a pretty shrewd move by getting on board and just saying, that's fine. We'll do this, because let's not forget, before Kevin Warren and everything else, we're going to start playing Friday games. Big Ten's going to start playing Friday games, and Gene's like, oh no, we're not. I mean, but you have to at some point get out
Maybe
there.
You are.
Yeah, and if you have to take one for the team at some point, then take one for the team. And I mean, Ohio State's not tarnishing its brand. It's not really, I don't think, putting itself in a disadvantageous position or whatever. So you just go for it. And if you have that big of an issue with it, then what is it that you're trying to protect yourself from?
Yeah.
I just want to jump on these comments about Notre Dame ratings. I haven't looked at last year's ratings, but in 2021, there are only 2 weeks where there weren't multiple Big Ten games rated ahead of the Notre Dame game that week. One was when Notre Dame played on a Sunday, so they had all eyes on them. The other was when Notre Dame played Wisconsin. So Big Ten, even the secondary Big Ten game generally outrates Notre Dame games, let alone the ones that are on Peacock. But yeah, as Dave's not here says, Indy doesn't have the Michigan and Ohio State bad game draw, and that's absolutely true. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, we've done a deep dive on these ratings from last year. They were quite enlightening, but not surprising. Yeah, of course, week one. When you consider Ohio State and Notre Dame get together and they outdraw a game there in Florida State LSU that was by itself on a Sunday night, so there was no competition, and they get 3 more million viewers when there are competitive games and decent games all over the place on Saturday night. That tells you a whole lot right there. Yeah, Notre Dame Marshall, of course, that was a big upset. They probably drew in some fans in the fourth quarter, did 2.5 million. You've got a Wisconsin-Washington State game that did rather well that week.
Yeah, it went down to the wire.
Yeah, did better than Wisconsin did.
Yes, yeah. Wasn't the most exciting game in terms of the football flying through the air, but it was 17-14.
Toledo at Ohio State doing better than Cal at Notre Dame, and you think that there would have been more viewers in there to sit there and rubberneck to see if the Notre Dame dumpster fire to start the season that year with losses to Ohio State and Marshall, what would happen there. And Ohio State still outdraws. I mean, the rating number is a little bit higher, but the viewers, Ohio State, did. I was told there'd be no math, like 140,000 more or whatever, according to the way that the ratings are. I mean, I guess that just goes to show that. I mean, that's Ohio State Toledo. I mean, I don't think DeQuan Finn had 2.2 million cousins that were watching the game.
Yeah, it really shows you Ohio State and Michigan's pull when you see that number. When you see these Michigan crap scrimmage games at the beginning of the season against UConn, Colorado State, and Hawaii. One of them did 4 million, just under 4 million on ABC at noon.
Yeah, I know one of the surveys said Ohio State for regular season drew almost 6 million viewers on average, and a lot of that was skewed, obviously, by Michigan at the end and Notre Dame at the beginning. And then in the playoff, obviously, the Georgia-Ohio State game was seen by over 20 million viewers and was even higher rated than the championship game, which obviously was like a 70-4 blowout or whatever the final score was. So yeah, it was just kind of tells you, that there's interest in Big Ten and Ohio State.
This tells you a lot. Ohio State Rutgers, first of all, was the highest rated game on the Big Ten Network the entire season. And the Big Ten Network obviously gets the worst games, but there were a lot of games that they showed that were consequential to the Big Ten Western Division race, Illinois, Iowa, etc. A number of those, and Ohio State Rutgers did better than all of those. And that is also the only window the entire season that a Big Ten Network game outdrew an ESPN1 game head-to-head.
Yep.
New York market.
Yeah. Yeah. That again.
That's where Jim Delaney came through. Yes.
We got markets 1, 2, and 3 in our hip pocket, babe. Who dis? So, who you think you are. So
Ohio State, Wisconsin was a bad football game. That was over after the first quarter. That was still the second highest rated game to Bama or Florida, Tennessee.
And so was Paul Chryst run at Wisconsin.